own restaurant, hell, you can look up, culinary programs or a lot of opportunities to be in these places where you can meet these people. I know there are several opportunities I've seen for free tastings or food fairs or vendors. They have something here in Chattanooga locally, the Chattanooga Market, where you meet different people who come and sell their goods, services, and products. Hey, start a conversation with them. They might can point you into the right direction. But I'm a big advocate of doing the work for yourself, because that's one of the negative stereotypes that African Americans get, is that they're lazy, they're entitled, they want things handed to them. And to some degree, for some people I know, I can say, hey, some people are like that. Of course, you can't, stereotype or generalize the whole race, but there is some truth to that. So you do have to do what you need to do to get ahead in your field or your industry, or swapping industries or whatever. You have to do the necessary work.
Definitely so. And and there's another part of this whole strategy when it comes to looking for new positions, and that's taking the skill set that you currently have and marketing what you're able to do to a larger audience. There are a lot of people who. I'll give you an example. There was this young lady that I used to work with in Florida. As a matter of fact, she actually used to be a bookkeeper. Now, there's a need for that, but there's not a big market for it. So with her, she actually had great Excel skills. When I say great, I mean she could do animated spreadsheets. She was that good with it. And so I actually hired her on as part of my team, and she ended up becoming a business intelligence analyst. And now she's making about $85,000. Previously, she was making about $30,000. But just because she had that one particular skill set, she was able to parlay that into a very lucrative career. So I say that to say, there are so many different avenues. If there's something that you're great at, market that skill, because I guarantee there's somebody out there that will need that particular skill. And so if you're on LinkedIn or Glassdoor or any of these other job sites, make sure that you make that a point of emphasis when you're updating your resume.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of resumes.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, I've seen some great resumes, and then I've seen some resumes that are like, what the hell
were you thinking?
Misspelled words, stuff all out of place, some that are outright lies.
Oh, my God. Outright lies.
Yeah.
It was funny. I know a former coworker of mine, he had... I won't say his assistant, but, someone that, fell under his direction. And the decision was made to bring her on board already. And, he and his coworker didn't have the opportunity to review her resume. And when he saw her actual resume, I couldn't believe what he told me. I had to see it for myself. She put in ADA requirements and skills, able to lift 50 pounds, can type. I'm like, she just copied and pasted ADA requirements and put it into her resume. Stuff like that is that's what gets your stuff in the trash. I can't tell you how many resumes I've screened or looked at or went through, but again, do the work, get the due diligence. There are people who have great resumes or who writes resumes. Get them to look at yours before you send it. That's you on paper. One thing about HR, and I'm going to say it, is HR is a very judgmental field. And so we may not have you in front to sell your skills or get to know you as a person. All we have is a sheet of paper outlining what you can do, what you said you've done, and what you're able to bring to the organization. So have people to overlook at it. And, it was an old saying, and I was trying to keep this a clean, professional show, but I think this is very apropos. Don't lie on your dick, so to speak. Don't say you can do this and you actually cannot produce, because once you get into that role, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yep. Now, I guess depending on your work, hell, it may not even matter if you can't do it or not.
That's true. That's true.
But, when we talk about these resumes, again, you made a good point. Get somebody to look at it. If you have to pay somebody to polish up your resume, do so, especially if you're not used to writing that, because, your resume is essentially a representation of you. So if you're putting garbage out there, guess what? They're going to think certain things of you that may not necessarily be true, and you don't want that.
Right.
You know, if you look, and I'll even say this when it comes to resumes, be brief, but be detailed. And by that, I mean, don't put a whole bunch of filler on there. You know, one of the things that I saw on there was, you know, the ability to stay focused, the ability to stay on task. You know, you're looking at that, like, what the who cares about that? What do you bring? What did you do in that position that is a valuable skill set that will be valued by this potential employer? That's kind of how you have to look at a lot of this. You know, if you're saying, you know, task oriented, well, hell, everybody has to be task oriented. That doesn't mean a damn thing to me, and it doesn't mean anything to anyone else either. Yeah. But if you go back and you say, hey, I was able to save the organization, you know, $250,000 by doing such or such and such, that's going to get somebody's attention.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anything that you can put a quantity to quantify, that goes a long way. If you say, hey, I can type such and such words a minute, or hey, I was able to produce these different parts, or I was able to assemble in this short amount of time. This is your opportunity to spotlight and highlight those things. That's what needs to be on the resume, not ability to stay focused.
Absolutely. And don't put like 10 or 15 different bullet points behind it. Honestly, you know, a quick description of what it is you did in general, then maybe 2 or 3 quick bullet points to describe a lot of the qualitative qualities that you brought to that position. Just in terms of accomplishment, here's what you did, here's the skill set that I have, here's what I can bring to the table, 1, 2, 3. And do that for each one of those positions. Yeah. You know, and be brief about it, because a lot of times the average time that a recruiter will spend looking at your resume is going to be less than 15 seconds before they move on. Sometimes even less than that. So you really want to make sure that you're getting their attention, but you also want to make sure that you keep their attention, because the longer they read through that resume, the more likely you will get a response from that particular recruiter or from that hiring manager.
And while we on the subject of resumes, and you know, every recruiter, I'm sure, Frank, you had your particular things that you looked at, or something that could rule out your decision to keep going. Every recruiter or HR person has their own particular vice. Mine is the email address. Yeah. If I see a whack email address, I'm not going to mess with you. No lie. At one of my previous jobs, I was screening applicants for a supervisor position, and her email address, and I kid you not, was 5starcat@gmail.com. Ma'am. Now, if you were trying to get into a different kind of field, maybe that would work. But in a professional setting, this is your email address. And then what I would do is, just to show them how ridiculous it is, if I'm on the phone, I'll say, can you verify your email address for me? And when they have to say it out loud, they're like, oh, shit, maybe I do need to change.
Sounds ridiculous.
Yeah. So if you just do something simple, first name or first initial, last name, something simple. If you have a crazy email address, like I say, that's one of the things that I look at too. I'm not going to reply to you. I'm not going to spend any more time, because that's just going to set me up to think less about you. I'm just being completely real.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to kind of be like that, because honestly, there probably are a lot of qualified people who otherwise just have ridiculous email addresses, but it's the small details that people will notice. And I can guarantee you, even if the recruiter were to let it go by, like, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm like, what, 5-star? For real? No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, but you know,
family show, man.
Family show. But I'm just like, you know what? But just because they might get through one layer doesn't mean that if that resume were to land on the desk of an executive, you don't think they would look at that and judge it? Shit, yes, they would. So, yeah, and it doesn't take long. Email addresses are free. Go to Gmail. Exactly. Man, first name, last name. You know, if you have to put a number in there, don't do anything ridiculous. I mean, you know, Put Joe Johnson 25. You know, if you have to, just keep it as basic and simple as possible, and keep it looking professional. If you have an AOL, Hotmail, Yahoo, man, scrap all that. Just keep it with Gmail or with your provider, and honestly, just keep it moving there.
That's it. That's it. Like I said, it's the little things, those details. You know, keep in mind on your resume. I'm not one to say, hey, it has to be a particular font, long as it's, you know, not in old English or nothing like that. I can't read that. eyes getting bad at 35 years old. So just a regular font, those little things go a long way, I promise you. If you, like I said, if you have that resume, don't be so prideful where you can say, well, I don't want my homeboy or homegirl to look at this and have to make corrections or red ink it. That's fine. They're going to get you where you need to go. Don't be afraid to do so. But again, your resume is the representation of you on a piece of paper. What do you want to tell us to say that you are the right person for this job?
Right. And, another thing is, too, put positions on your resume. Here's the thing. A lot of people think you have to put your entire work history on your resume. Please don't do that. I don't need to know that you were a shift leader at Burger King. Unless you are applying to be a manager at Burger King,
right.
Don't put that on there. Put the positions on there that are relevant. Relevant and in chronological order. And you know what? If there are some gaps, you can explain the gaps once you get to the interview process. But don't sit up there and just put, and don't put positions that you only have for like a month or two, No. Honestly, especially if it's not a professional position, don't put short-term positions on there. Like, don't say you were a Cutco representative for like 6 months. Dude, I still got those knives, man, and they're the shit.
I forgot all about the damn knives,
man. I sold them shit to 1997. I had to cut through a rope. Yeah, you can cut through a rope. You can cut through a penny. Shit. High ass knives, but I did sell a set to Usher's mama though.
You said to Usher's mama.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's a story for another day, man. But,
you getting scholarships from Dolly Parton, selling knives to Usher mama. Man. What else you holding out?
Shout out to Usher's mama, man.
Mama manager, yeah.
And just so you know, Usher is from Chat, so it's not like this was far-fetched or anything. His grandmama went to my church, and we made a connection, so it's all good. But anyway.
Shout out to Dalewood Middle School.
Dalewood, man. Look, we're going to have to talk about that in another show. Oh, Lord. But anyway.
Yeah, man. Now, let me ask you this, though, kind of going back to the topic at hand. What would you say would be, okay, say, for instance, you presented the great resume, everything looks good, you're coming in for an interview. You have to do that 5-10 second scan of the applicants. What are some of the things that you say you notice first about someone coming in for an interview?
Just in person? I look to see if a person is confident, and everyone's going to be nervous about the process, but I want you to have some degree of confidence about yourself. When you're selling somebody on yourself and you want people to give you an opportunity, it's not just necessarily the words that you have on paper on a resume. It's also, can you make eye contact? Can you speak clearly? Can you conduct yourself, comport yourself as a professional? Are you confident in what it is that you're saying? Can you look me in the eye? Little small things like that. And we call those, some of the nonverbal cues, nonverbal language that really kind of tells you about somebody. If you're talking to me in an interview and you're looking down or you're mumbling, I don't look at that as being a confident candidate. You may very well be competent, but I can't view you as a confident candidate. And so it's going to make me wonder, will they shy away when the spotlight is hot, during a job situation, will they have the ability to work with different levels? One of the things that you see on certain job positions is the ability to work with all levels, including executives, peers, those that may be below them. And so, if you're not able to handle, some of the stress that comes through just a normal interview process, it's going to make me wonder, do you have that ability to work with everybody in the organization as needed? So those are just little things for me. I try not to nitpick it too much because I know not everyone's perfect, and I know a lot of times, especially if you're interviewing for a significant position, sometimes you might get nervous. But I at least want to see most of those basics, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I look for those same things as well, but also even before I speak to you, your appearance speaks to me first. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I think a lot of people have shied away from, and it is okay. I know when we were, in school we were taught, when you go to an interview, dress your best, suit and tie, ladies, how to do y'all professional thing or whatever. Yes, that's all well and good. But again, like I said, we are in a different time and different situations. Once you're contacted for an interview for that position, it is okay to ask them what would be the desired, how